Hey there everybody, and welcome back to more Haunting Ground. Last time, Fiona managed to find her way through the last parts of the mansion, getting together all the bits and baubles to make the Godstone. And for all of her hard work, we do finally find ourselves outside of the mansion, and maybe one step closer to freedom. But as you can probably tell from that homunculus standing on the steps there, we are going to be in for what could be considered a very confusing part of the game, mostly due in part to the fact that we mysteriously find ourselves out in the middle of a dense forest. Thankfully, almost immediately, the game knows that we are probably going to be in a bit of a bind finding our way around, so it does pretty much immediately give us the map for the area. And we already get a sense of foreboding as we see that this isn't just a simple forest. No, this is the Chaos Forest. And even though it does give us a map, it's not really that helpful of a map. But I have a good feeling about this place. At least it's not inside anymore in narrow corridors, so I think we should be good.
Huey! Huey!
Yeah, Chaos Forest is a very unique area of the game. I think as opposed to most other areas that we've been in, not only is it one of the few exterior settings, but, well, there are no doors or anything like that to really separate the different parts. So if we do happen to run into a stalker out here, if we do happen to run into Ricardo, well, there will be very little we can do to actually, well, elude him. Also, outside of these random pots and items over here, we do find a unique save point in the game. As we are outside, obviously we couldn't run into a grandfather clock, but they do give us another clock, a sundial here, which we can save at if we do need to. But with me as your guide, we should have a fairly easy goings out here in the Chaos Forest. It's actually a fairly short area if you know where to go. But our main quest for right now is to actually figure out where Huey went off to. There's our buddy. He seems to be hurt, though.
You've been shot. You'll be alright. This will stop the bleeding.
But just like that, Ricardo appears out of nowhere, and, well, with Huey down, we have very little in the means to defend ourselves, and especially in these very narrow pathways, it's just really not a good idea to try to fight Ricardo here. There are a few random items you can get if you decide to explore, but really, well, we're actually almost to the end of Chaos Forest, or at least the means out of here.
Do your best, Fiona.
Yeah, rather mysteriously, the music dies down, and we seem to have eluded Ricardo.
Why are you doing this? What did I do?
You inherited your father's Azoth. That is what you did.
What Azoth? I don't even know what that is.
That Azoth belongs to us, Fiona. Don't you see? You are our child.
Stop! I am not your child. I know exactly who my parents are.
Fiona, we are, or rather I am, knowledge. I hold invaluable information from the dawn of time. I am a great alchemist. I will not die. I am Oriola's belly, and I... Look at me, Fiona. Look.
What?
Just like your father, Ugo.
Daddy?
We are clones. We are clones. Ugo is no more. I am the original. With that, Azoth, I will finally be complete. You are about to give birth to me all over again. Another 2 or 3 days at most.
Huey. You saved me again.
Now, for however much you want to question Debilitas's or Daniela's motivations, they are really nothing in comparison to Ricardo's because... Holy fuck, let's just move on. So we find ourselves in a brand new location, locked away. Mysteriously, Huey seems to be totally fine now, but we'll just chalk that up to Fiona being a really good veterinarian. But in our cell here, we do find a map for the area we're in. So we're going to go ahead and use that. We also found a memo, which should hopefully fill us in on what we need to do here. Yet again, this is another memo from the mysterious Lorenzo, who still continues to help us. It seems, though, that the water tower does not have any exit anymore. But that does not mean that we cannot make ourselves an exit using an item called the Magistratarium. As to what that is, we will find that out soon enough. But I think first things first, we are going to need to figure a way out of this cell. Also, just a quick look at the water tower waiting for us ahead. Actually, it's not too difficult of an area, as you can probably tell from the map. It's just circles and stairs leading up. But don't let that fool you, there is plenty of challenge waiting in this area, probably more so than anything we've had to deal with so far. Yeah, you can probably see the keys and pretty easily understand what the solution to the puzzle here is. We just need to direct Huey to pick those up. And just like that, we can now leave.
There you are, boy. Huey. Thank you, Huey.
Still, I actually have no idea how Huey was able to make it here, especially with there being no entrance or exit to the place. But, you know, dog magic for all I know. And already we do have a few items to pick up, such as this bronze statuette here. A bronze figurine, I'm sorry. Now, you may be wondering if this is part of the water tower puzzle, and I will immediately tell you, no, not at all. The bronze figurine actually is one of two items in the game that serves no purpose than to increase your item find percentage at the end. Rather odd and confusing, but, well, we do find yet another machine that we saw a number of times in the laboratory section of the mansion. And this is actually why we made sure to bring the red godstone with us. By popping it into the machine, we do find that it does transform yet again. But this time, it doesn't transform into a mere stone, but instead it transforms into a new piece of equipment. Also, since I didn't look at the description, you can tell here that it pretty plainly tells us that, you know, we will be compensated for our proof of becoming a sage or whatever. But I figure, you know, I haven't actually been using too much of the unlockable equipment, so I might as well pop that on now. The Philosopher's Stone is actually kind of a middle range piece of earring. Obviously it's not as good as the fairy earrings, but, you know, it's reasonably good for not having to beat the game first. Also, I was kind of hoping that by putting on boots that Fiona's outfit would change from being barefoot, but it seems that for this particular outfit, you are pretty much always forced to be barefoot.
Fiona! Useless mutt! Ah, the formula is working then. It works directly on the eyes. You can't see me, can you? You are mine. I own you. You are mine. I own you.
Yeah, it seems that while we were unconscious, Ricardo managed to perfect a invisibility serum? It's never really explained where or how he was working on this formula, but yeah, he's dropped his guns and instead decided to just melee us rather violently. And with his invisibility, yeah, you can definitely see where this part becomes rather difficult. But a good thing to keep in mind is that there are key locations where Ricardo will not ever come. So you can actually run to particular areas and, well, just drop his attention completely. And that's actually fairly useful because we do have to backtrack because there was actually something down in that lower area that we are going to need. We also find a readily available status recovery point here. That will be very useful in the upcoming sections. But yeah, something that might have been a bit difficult to notice as I was running from my life from the invisible killer was that there were a few of these pipes along the ground here. And by investigating them, Fiona is able to figure out that with a little bit of force, she might actually be able to burst them open. Now, not all of them will be filled with panic-inducing bugs. Sometimes there will be a usable item in them. And in the case of a puzzle we're going to have to solve, I guess you were just supposed to randomly guess that the item you're going to need is going to be in one of these pipes. No, it's not a album medallion. There's still one more pipe we need to bust open. And the silver disc, much like the bronze figurine, is yet another completely pointless item, but it does help if you are trying to get the diamond necklace. But yeah, this wooden miniature is actually what we are going to need to finish up the main puzzle of the water tower. But with that, we can actually start heading our way upwards and dealing with the main obstacle of the tower. Though I did want to show you, just in case you were wondering what it meant by there being no exit. It really means we have no other means of escaping this tower. Somehow or another, we were able to get here, and in the midst of all that, the pathway out managed to collapse. Yet again, just bringing more to mind the fact that just a bunch of random set pieces is what this game seems to be made up of. We've gone from a dilapidated Gothic castle to a incredibly confusing museum slash laboratory slash mansion. And then we went through a chaotic forest, and we've now ended up in a rather tall tower in the middle of a lake. And obviously, looking at the interior of this particular tower, it doesn't seem like this place has been in use in quite some time. But definitely at this point, the music becomes very necessary to figuring out when Ricardo will magically decide to appear. You can kind of see his outline there. He's not always completely invisible, but, well, he is mostly invisible pretty much all the time. Thankfully, Huey's keen senses allows him to pretty much hone in directly on Ricardo. And you might be wondering, Niggeroth, why aren't you just running like you normally do? There should be plenty of places you can run and hide and be safe, and while that would normally be the case, this particular tower is more or less a very prolonged boss fight. Basically, we just have to keep on beating up on Ricardo till he decides to walk off. And once he does that, we just have to find a nearby lever. Now, in the case of pretty much any interactable object in the game, we can never really interact with them while we are under attack or, in a panic state. So that's where the requirement comes in that, well, we have to get rid of Ricardo before we can really continue on.
Huey!
Where it really comes into play that hopefully you have been hoarding the Huey healing items, such as the chicken and beef jerky. And also, hopefully you've been keeping up a fairly good rapport with Huey. That means he'll be more than happy to help you and keep Ricardo away or just at bay.
Huey!
But as you could probably tell, that lever on the upper level managed to turn the floor around, allowing us further
Huey!
egress upwards into the tower. And as you could probably assume from the map we gained before, there are going to be quite a few floors we're going to have to manipulate levers on. And, well, yeah, Ricardo isn't done with us yet. As far as I know, probably at a bare minimum, you're going to have to deal with Ricardo's invisible meleeing here at least twice. It actually becomes even more if you don't really figure out where the lever is quick enough, or if you happen to get scared and decide to run back downstairs. As far as I know, running back downstairs will actually sometimes reset the enemy encounters here, and well, even with the stats recovery point, you really want to be keeping these little melee encounters to a minimum.
You won't get away.
Huey! Good boy.
And Huey is being exceptionally helpful this time around. And we actually just have, I think, 2 more floors to go, and I think only one of them has another Ricardo enemy encounter. But it does have an additional little hurdle to get over, as you'll soon be seeing. Just a small, tiny hurdle. In the form of about 6 luminescents. Yes, I am a master of dodging. Now normally it's a good idea to try to herd some of the luminescents out of that confined space, but I thought I might be able to just sneak past them, and you saw how that went. Thankfully, upon reaching the next floor, since it is a rather large puzzle, Ricardo thankfully drops all of his attention towards us. And we find ourselves upon a very large astrological map. Now there is a fairly long description over here about stars and planets and how it all becomes interconnected and we have to work as a team and blah 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 blah. But I'll just kind of forget all that. The solution to the puzzle is really incredibly simple for how much they go out of their way to try to make it seem like this whole big to-do. Really, all we have to first do is find one of these spots that is already lit up. And after standing on it, we just have to direct Huey to the next lit up spot. Once there, we just have to tell him to wait. And then we find the next lit up spot. Really, the only difficulty here is making sure that your viewpoint is pointed towards the right place, and that, well, hopefully you have kept up a good relationship with Huey, so he will listen to you whenever you say to sit or stop or wait.
Stay. Go!
But I'm wanting to say that after all that intense combat we just had with Ricardo, they just decided to softball a little simple puzzle at you. At least it was visually stimulating. But just like that, we finally find ourselves all the way at the tippity top of the water tower. And it's quite an interesting viewpoint we have from up here. But even more interesting than that is this diorama. Now, what do we need to use this diorama for, especially considering that we have previously picked up a miniature bridge? It should be fairly obvious. But what isn't obvious is this kickable wall here. Yeah, just deciding to make something coming up a little bit easier to deal with. But to build the passageway between the place we're needing to go and the water tower, all we need to do is use this little wooden bridge here and place it connecting the two areas of land.
Fiona! Why must you defy me? Why do you run? Let me into your womb!
Now, after all the encounters we've already had with invisible melee-heavy Ricardo, thankfully the final boss fight we have here is kind of like Daniela's encounter in that it's more of a puzzle rather than just a straight-up fight. Now, you may notice this central little tower column here has a number of holes, and well, if we direct Huey in that particular one, well, you can see him perched up there.
Huey!
And that's the final step in our trap.
Fee. Oh. No.
We have defeated yet another stalker, and possibly the creepiest one yet. And I think we are actually one step closer to getting the hell out of this awful place. So let's go ahead and just keep going.
Ricardo, you were always incomplete. But now, I will have your Azoth. You have not died in vain.
But with the water tower now done, and our status now fully recovered from this nearby water fountain, I do feel that this is probably a good place to stop. We're actually very close to the end of the game. We're going to be heading to the final section, and hopefully you will join me next time as we head to the final area of Haunting Ground.